So in the previous class we learned direct proportion and inverse proportion. Okay, now we are going to the next topic, compound proportion. Compound proportion. What is called compound proportion? In direct proportion, inverse proportion, we are having only two quantities are there. Okay, two quantities are there. But in compound proportion, it is three quantities. Okay. In compound proportion, we are having three quantities. Okay. So, what is called compound proportion now? So, one quantity depends upon the other two quantities. Okay. One quantity depends upon the other two quantities. Is called compound proportion. That means one quantity. So, first quantity depends on second quantity. So, that first quantity increases, second quantity also increases, means it is direct proportion. Okay. And first quantity depends on third quantity. So, first quantity increases, third quantity decreases, that is called inverse proportion. So, both inverse proportion and direct proportion it may be caused. Okay. So, that is called compound proportion. So, what is called compound proportion? One quantity depends upon other two quantities is called compound proportion. Okay, children? Come on, write. Write the definition, take your CWs. Keep today's date, all of you. Sometimes change in one quantity depends upon the change in two or more quantities. In some proportion. It may be direct proportion or maybe inverse proportion. Anyway, it's called compound proportion. Compound proportion. Or this is also called as mixed proportion. Mixed proportion. Write the definition. Okay. So this is called compound proportion. So how can we equate the compound ratio? So we can equate the ratio of the quantity to the compound ratio of other two quantities. Okay, we are having three quantities are there. So in compound proportion, we can take one quantity. Okay, ratio of one quantity is equal to the compound ratio of other two quantities. We are having three cases. First case is one quantity is directly proportional to the other two quantities. Okay. And second case is one quantity is inversely proportional to other two quantities. And third case is one quantity is directly proportional to other quantity and another quantity it is in inverse proportion. Okay. So first case is three quantities are there, no? I will explain on the board. What is the first case is here we are having three quantities. Quantity 1, quantity 2, quantity 3. Okay. So this quantity 1 depends upon these two quantities. Okay. So first this quantity 1 depends these two quantities in direct proportional. Both quantity 2 and quantity 3 also direct proportional. This is the first case. And second case is quantity 1 depends upon other two quantities. So this is inversely proportional. Okay. This quantity 1 is inversely proportional to other two quantities. First one is both directly proportional and second one is both inversely proportional. And third case is quantity 1 depends upon these two quantities. First quantity is directly proportional to second quantity, and first quantity is inversely proportional to third quantity. Okay. So in the first quantity, quantity 1 depends upon two quantities and quantity 1 is directly proportional both two quantities. Okay. And second case, quantity 1 depends upon two quantities and it is in inversely proportional. Both quantity 2 and quantity are in inversely proportional. And third case is quantity 1 depends upon two quantities and quantity 1 is directly proportional to quantity 2 and quantity 1 is inversely proportional to quantity 3. Okay. So these are the cases for compound ratio. Okay. Let us go to exercise. You will learn. Okay. Before we are going to that one, see the page number in your textbook. Page number 12. Page number 12 open. See here, points are their cases. 1, 2, 3. From here to here, you should write in your notebook. Then we equate the ratio of the first quantity to the compound ratio of the other two quantities. First case is one quantity may be in direct proportion with the other two quantities. One quantity may be in inverse proportion with the other two quantities. Third one is one quantity may be in direct proportion with one quantity and in inverse proportion with the remaining quantity. Now you should write those three. Okay? Write in your syllabus. So it is an exercise 8.4 last question. If 5 men take 8 days to type 10 books, then how many days it takes for 8 men to type 2 books? Okay. Here, how many quantities are there, children? 3 quantities. What are those? Number of men, number of days, number of typed books. 3 quantities are there. Okay. So it is in compound proportion. Here we have 3 quantities. Here we have 3 quantities. What are those? Number of men, number of men, number of days, and number of typed books. Number of typed books. Okay. So these are the 3 quantities. Now first you should draw one table. So here what you have to find, how many days? Days you have to find. So first you should write that one. Number of days. Next number of men. Next number of typed books. Okay. You can draw one table here. So number of days. First one how much? 8 days given. 8 days. Number of men how much? 5. And number of typed books how many? 10 books. Next second one. You have to find number of days. So let us take number of days. It is X. Okay. And men. How many men? 8. And number of typed books? 2. Okay. So here, what you observe, this number of days depends upon these two quantities. Okay, number of days depends upon these two quantities. So first you observe these two quantities, number of days and number of men. Okay. So here, days how many? 8 days. And number of men? 5 men. Okay. So 5 men can work in 8 days. And next, 8 men. 8 men can work in how many days? You have to find it. So what do you observe? 5 men can work in 8 days. Okay. 5 members can work in 8 days. And 8 men. Here it will be, workers will be increased. Number of men will be increased. And number of days. సో ఇక్కడ తక్కువ మెంబర్స్ 8 డేస్ వర్క్ చేస్తారు. 5 మెంబర్స్ 8 డేస్ వర్క్ చేసినప్పుడు 8 మెంబర్స్ ఉన్నప్పుడు ఎన్ని డేస్ వర్క్ చేస్తారు? ఇక్కడ మెంబర్స్ ఇంక్రీజ్ అయ్యారు, డేస్ ఏమవుతుంది? ఇంక్రీజ్ అవుతుందా డిక్రీజ్ అవుతుందా? ఓకే, మనుషులు ఎక్కువైనప్పుడు వర్క్ కూడా ఫాస్ట్ గా అవుతుంది, అంటే డేస్ ఏమవుతుంది? ఇక్కడ డిక్రీజ్ అవుతుంది. ఓకే, సో హియర్ ఇట్ విల్ బి ఇంక్రీజ్, నంబర్ ఆఫ్ మెన్ విల్ బి ఇంక్రీజ్ అండ్ నంబర్ ఆఫ్ డేస్ విల్ బి decrease. So which proportion will get here? Yes, inverse proportion. So right here, number of days is inversely proportional to number of men. Okay, number of days is inversely proportional to number of men. Next, take these two quantities, number of days and number of typed books. So here number of men how many? Sorry, number of days how many days? 8 days. And typed books how many? 10 books. So for 8 days, 10 books were typed. Now here only typed books how many? 2. So that means here decreased. ఇక్కడ 10 ఉన్నది, ఇక్కడ 2 అంటే books అన్ని కూడా తగ్గినాయి, అంటే decrease అయ్యింది. Okay, and number of days. Number of days ఏమవుతుంది? 10 books type చేయడానికి 8 days పట్టింది. 2 books type చేయడానికి ఎన్ని days పడుతుంది? తక్కువే కదా పడుతుంది. So here it is decrease, here also decrease. Okay, so number of days, now what happened? Here it is decrease, here also decrease, both are decrease. That means it is in direct proportion. Number of days is directly proportional to number of typed books. Okay, so number of days is inversely proportional to number of men. It is in inverse proportion, and number of days is directly proportional to number of typed books. Here we are getting two proportions. One is inverse proportion, another one is direct proportion. So here, what do you observe here? Both number of days depends upon these two quantities. So right here, number of days depends upon number of men and number of typed books. Okay, did you understand, children, up to here? Just you should write what are the quantities given in the question. Okay, next, number of days, number of men, number of typed books, you should write in the table. So for 8 days, 5 men. That means here 5 members are there working in 8 days. Next, here 8 members are working here. It will be, number of days will be decreased. So it is inverse proportion. Number of days is inversely proportional to number of men. And number of typed books and number of days. Here 10 books for 8 days. And 2 books. That means here decrease. For number of days also it will be decreased. So it is directly proportional. Okay, did you understand up to here right now?